So I've been getting lots of feedback about the shorts that have been putting up, and I got a lot of feedback about a conversation that we had and a conversation that I had with Marius as well. So I'm wondering if you've got any ideas about um, the possibility of us having another conversation about some aspect of this, whatever you call it, process.
Sure, if you think it'll help. I mean, it's kind of odd. I can't just voluntarily start talking about this stuff, which is
Well, I
why I
mean,
don't
yeah,
don't provide any content on the internet. I even tried one time. I set up a video. I was like, I don't know what to say. I put up a few things where I went through Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, and kind of gave a commentary. And even when I got through with that, I just had no enthusiasm for it. But yeah,
yeah,
we could try it. I mean, the last time, the conversation seemed to flow all right. So if you
yeah,
think it's a
yeah.
good idea, sure, we can try it sometime.
Yeah, yeah, I'm exactly like you, to sit there and think, now, what are we going to talk about? This doesn't work. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yet I can
Ask me a
talk
question.
non-stop. Yeah,
Yeah, ask me a question, I'll rattle on. But other than that, it's just like a block of wood.
yeah. So maybe maybe the easy way out is to ask everybody else what they might want to hear us talk about.
Yeah, that would be good. If you had a list of questions to topic of conversation, um,
Yeah, yeah.
that would be helpful because questions are I can kind of get going on that.
Here is a question.
Yes, yes.
D did you ever experience what you might call emptiness, Paul?
Yeah, at first. Uh, Now my definition of emptiness might not coincide with the Buddhist stuff, but when I saw it, it didn't last long, and then it switched over to something I call fullness. Emptiness was when I saw through the emptiness of the concept of Paul, that it was just a storybook character, and it kind of overlapped everything, the whole conceptual world. Well, the whole concept made me realize the whole conceptual world is a story. It 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 took it took the fullness out of the story of Paul, not lessening it, just putting it in a different perspective and the world in a different perspective, so that the story of Paul and the story of the world wasn't quite so onerous. It took the heaviness away from it, which made it a lot lighter, which is what I'm kind of loosely describing as emptiness. Now, a few months later, I had kind of another realization about, well, I won't go into it, about location and where does consciousness reside. And there was a fullness that went into everything, but it wasn't the onerous fullness that was there before that had the heaviness to it. This was a light fullness to everything. It was like consciousness was an immersive experience, more like. Now, those definitions, especially the emptiness, to be honest, I don't know if I could even tell you the full definition of emptiness according to Buddhism, but that was my version of it. But it was more of a lightness than some people have. Emptiness seems to have a negative connotation with some people. It doesn't have that with me. It was more of a lightness to it. I hope that answers your question.
Well, let's examine it a little bit more, Paul, because I think I love it. I like what you say, and what I imagine is that the first thing that you lost was the conceptual nature, the story of what you were seeing, the belief in the belief that that story was what was actual, was what dropped in the beginning. That was your initial experience of emptiness. Would you say that was the case?
It was like it was seeing that it's all conceptual and that the content was dropped. In other
Yeah,
words,
yeah,
the heaviness of Paul, the heaviness of the story of Paul, the importance of the story
yeah.
of
There you
Paul
go.
would
That's the
probably
one.
be a better
Yeah.
word, was
Yes.
dropped away, and it overlapped the world, the importance of the world. And it's not a not caring type of thing about the world. I care, but it was just a backing off of the importance of the
Right.
gravity of the world.
But
In a way, it
what?
was an emotional lightness, but that may be a poor
Yeah, yeah.
analogy.
So what I'm pushing you to clarify if there was a recognition that you'd been relating to the stories about the world and yourself as if they were actual,
Yes,
and the loss of that was where the lightness came in,
yes,
right? And then months later, when you had another, you said realization, but you had another shift, right? Then you
yeah,
shifted into seeing or relating to what was actual rather than what the stories were.
yeah. That would be fair. The It was all of experience. It was like consciousness, whatever this is. Consciousness was immersed in all of experience and not encased here and everything else out there. It's all one thing, and this is just a
Mm,
part of it. To put it another way, to put it on the screen analogy, people will say, well, for a while there was briefly like a screen, but I was still here and there was this screen of experience.
yeah,
The What I'm describing is I, or this, was
yeah,
became part of the screen.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
screen, everything in it was just one thing, which maybe again that it's difficult to find an analogy to describe this. And it was
yeah.
what I describe as the fullness, or that consciousness pervades all of experience. Experience is all there is.
Mm,
And you could say experience is self-aware, but still that's dualistic. And it's not like that. It's just one thing, but
yeah,
there's no
yeah.
way to really describe it.
Well, that's right. Yeah, then it's important, that one, to recognise that for people's expectations, the experience is so complex and subtle that no description works for it.
Yeah,
You can only kind of vaguely point at it.
yeah.
The actual
Language is the
experience.
problem. Language is the problem, and yet, ironically, it is the only solution we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is trying to, and all we can do is point around things. We can't
Right.
point to it.
So just for the sake of people understanding too, the what you said was you're not sure about the Buddhist view of emptiness. What they talk about, as my understanding of what they talk about, is that no thing, which includes no body, has inherently any characteristics that reflect what it is. That was a bit vague, wasn't it? But that inherent characteristic. So everything is empty of characteristics that define it, right? So
Okay.
that any definition of it is what we bring to it rather than what exists in it
Yeah. Okay.
originally. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I can
again, it
kind of.
gets pretty hard to describe, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've even read it before, and I was puzzled by it. But
Hmm.
I get it. I get what it's pointing to, but the description of it is.
Yeah.
giving me
So
trouble.
what we do before waking up is we bring to everything characteristics that we believe are in it, but in fact are
Yeah,
what we bring to it with our own interpretation.
yeah. There's the thing, and there's the story about the thing,
Yes,
which
yes,
is the stories are as wide as
yeah,
the number of people there are, I guess.
yeah. And the crazy thing is, and this is a bit judgmental in a way, or it could be judgmental. It's not. No, I think it's descriptive more than judgmental for me. But nevertheless, the majority of people spend their whole life running around this world believing that what they're relating to is something actual, when in fact what they're relating to is their stories of what
Yeah,
they think is actual. Yeah,
yeah. And it's hard to pull that in as a reality. You know, we could sit here and
yeah,
discuss it as it's a conceptual world, and
yeah,
it's just what we're making. We're making the whole story.
yeah,
But it seems so real. You say, well, that's a nice theory, but how does it how does it actually
yeah.
relate?
So
So
what we've got
it's
to do with this stuff, what we're trying to do with these meetings and with any waking up guiding of any kind, is help people to trip over into experiencing the difference between what is actual and what is conceptual.
yeah, great.
And it can only be experienced. It can't be described. It can't be transmitted with words. It can't be nothing. It has to be experienced to be real.
Yeah, with language, I've always oh, you know, you could with the constraints of language, I've always thought trying to point to what it's not may be more useful because language is inherently divisive and negative. And so it's you can say, no, it's not that. No, it's not that. And you be with some degree of accuracy, no, it's not that.
Mm,
Destroying expectations in a sense because you can't point to what the thing is.
yeah,
You can dance all around it, but many times the more you dance all around what it is, you create more confusion.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think there was a Zen master I read a long time ago, and he would never point you to anything, and he would say, "Nope, not it.
Just
Nope,
not that, not that. Yeah,
nope, not
nitty nitty. Yes.
yeah,
So
that's it."
I've a couple of times uh, it's happened with Scott once. You know that it's kind of you feel like good guiding. You end up with somebody in a corner, and they can't move. They can't say anything. All they can do is kind of just go, oh, and
Yeah,
then they have that experience of that oneness, experience of the reality of something. Not no stories work at all. Yeah.
yeah. There's it's like there's no escape, and they have to surrender. They just
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
like Ajahn said, he just all this, and finally he said, "God, I give up." You know, that was the moment when it when it
Yeah.
happened
Yeah.
for it, which a lot of people report. You just have to be at your wits' end, like Tony
Parsons.
Parsons
Parsons.
used to
Yeah.
do. He would just leave. I was like, why do people even go to these meetings? It's so discouraging. You know, he just takes everything away. Nope, you can't do it. You nope, nope, nope. And I like,
Mm.
people paid him good money to just negate everything. I loved him for it, but
Yeah.
he's kind
Yeah.
of softened up now a little bit. But I really liked his technique of just taking everything away from you, and it,
Yeah.
from what I heard, it was effective with some people.
Yeah. Well, when I think back to my awakening experience, there was that sudden shift into just this, and this had nothing to do with language or nothing to do with ideas. It was just what is this experiencing that's happening now that couldn't be described. It's way too complex and too subtle to be described. And there it was. That is it. Nothing else. Yeah, it was definitely a move into that. But my I didn't spend any time in emptiness. I didn't feel the lack of something. My experience into to this was already full.
Hmm,
I went straight into the fullness of direct experience.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, if it came and went after that, but that was the initial shift that was the big one for me. Yeah,
Yeah. Subtle and complex. That's a good way to describe it. Because it was it happened blink of an eye for me in a way. I mean,
yeah,
there
yeah.
was a
Me
lot of
too. Yeah,
warm up to it over the couple of months before, but that it was just when I saw it, I was just this is so simple.
yeah,
I've been
yeah.
chasing this 35 years. It's right here all the time, and yet it took all of that, I think, to get
Yeah,
me to that, which is ironic.
yeah.
Which everything in this is ironic and paradoxical. I
I
mean,
get that.
you can't
Yeah,
escape
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
When
yeah,
you said that, I thought my warm up was 45 years long.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I repeat this because I've said it before a few times, and that is that I then at some point, I don't know how long afterwards, but I thought, geez, this should have happened when I was 15. You know, I would have had a whole lifetime of different experience. And then with that came this sudden realization that everything was necessary. Everything I went
mm,
through for 45 years was necessary to lead up to this point where it happened.
I
Yeah.
agree. I've
Yeah.
thought about that before. What would it have been like? Which you can't even imagine it, but
No, yeah.
um, it was in a way it was a series of mistakes that brought me here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything that was considered wrong was really, really important.
Had to wear it out.
Yeah.
And it really boiled down to a lot of expectations about what this was.
Oh, God,
And
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the cornerstone of this is getting expectations out of the way. So that's why I think Liberation Unleashed is doing a great service because they recognize that right off the bat and they go right into it with people.
Yeah.
Whereas I never knew to get expectations out of the way or what an expectation was even. It wasn't even defined as a thing in a lot
Mm.
of the literature. So, uh, yeah, it is, I am where I am. I guess that's just the way it's supposed to be. Or I guess, I don't know. That's another story, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking back to some of the, well, it's hard to call them expectations, but they were. Well, looking back, they were expectations, but the reality of those expectations, were, I sincerely believed that I was going to be magical, that I was going to have magic abilities afterwards. Like I use the metaphor of walking on water, but I vaguely remember reading a series of books, God, way back, really a long, long time ago, I guess. And it was about a Buddhist monk, and it was fiction. I'm sure it is fiction now. Um, and I think the name was something like Chogyam Rinpa or something like that. But anyway, he was some kind of a Buddhist monk, and he could get into the state where he could fly. And it was like I took that to be reality. I took the ability to do all sorts of things as real. It's like I really thought, well, because there's talk of cities, in the
Yeah.
Buddhist literature, and I thought, oh, well, I'm going to have some cities, I'll be able to instantly heal anything that's wrong with me. If I want to lose weight, I'll just think about it and lose weight. Well, good luck with that one. All sorts of things that I was going to
Yeah.
do. So they
I
weren't,
ran into that in
yeah,
the many, many years ago. I read something called the Yoga Aphorisms of Patanjali, which is an ancient work, which is really a whole book. It's a paperback of the many cities that become available on the path. But the irony of the book is it says, don't do any of these. This is the
yes,
book. This book is a warning to you if these show up because you'll get drawn off the path, the true path, into these, and it will lead you down
yeah,
the
yeah.
wrong road and stuff like that. But I always the whole book is about these things that these Buddhist monks the powers
Yeah,
they would run into along the path. So yeah, I was always kind of fascinated by that too. But
yeah,
nothing has showed up for me. I mean,
yeah,
I still haven't won the lottery.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I buy a lottery ticket every month and I've never hit anything. So apparently there's nothing there.
yeah. Who knows? Yeah. Yet I still believe, this thing I call synchronicity is kind of halfway to that magic thing. I still think that, well, and I put it in more logical, what I imagine are scientific terms, and that is that as we relax, our perspective is wider and we notice more possibilities than we ever did before, when we were narrowly focused on what we think should have happened or what we wanted to happen. So there is this idea that when we're open to whatever occurs, when we're in a noticing mode, that we notice a lot more, and a lot more possibilities turn up as a result of that noticing.
I agree. Synchronicity is kind of a thing. Matter of fact, I have a poster on my wall right here. Synchronicity.
Mm.
It seems like, or and synchronicity and coincidences always get the two mixed up, but there do seem to be quite a lot of them in my life. Just things, just in a way, things just fall into place sometimes at just the right time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
It seems like a synchronicity or a coincidence. Something. It seems like it happens all the time. Just little things mostly.
yeah,
But I agree. Maybe it's just a more open perspective about possibilities.
yeah. And at one point in my seeking days, when I was investigating things like belief and so on, I came to this conclusion that that is what leads to wisdom. So I was imagining that wisdom was a thing back in those days, and that was the result of having that wider perspective on things. It gave us more possibilities to consider with around every circumstance. So then that became a wiser way, because I somehow or other I like the idea of wisdom.
Yeah, I do too. I really enjoyed. I was lucky and had the opportunity to go to college years ago, and we had what we call pre-law program because I was eventually going to go to law school, and it was a wide range. It was called the liberal arts, where you were exposed to the seven major uh, areas of human endeavor, which would be the languages and sciences and music and art, and it gives you what used to be, which the common type of education that you got over in Europe many years ago. You went to school, everybody got kind of a liberal arts, just general knowledge, and I really loved it. It just is, and I find now that it gives me a perspective on things that I would have never had without that. I would have never read half or three quarters of the stuff that we were exposed to in college if they hadn't made me read it and do homework assignments in it. Now I really appreciate all that stuff because it helps in this, even in
Mm.
helpful analogies and metaphors and things like that.
Are we making sense to you, Bianca?
What?
Yeah, very good.
Well, hopefully we answered Marius's question. That was kind of a long-winded way around the path.
Well, I don't understand this fullness, and
So did you hear what you just said? You don't understand the fullness? Oh, excuse me. So, did anywhere
I
in
had
what we were
to
talking
say
about?
it.
Yeah.
I had to say it somehow.
Yes.
Don't feel bad. No one does when I talk about that. No, or very few, if any. Well, I find um, Angelo DeLulos, I think, has really, really good understanding and a much better explanation of it than I have uh, when he talks about. And now with the fetters, it's actually, I think it's the breaking of the sixth and seventh fetter, which is, it's just the dropping of another belief that the location of consciousness is located anywhere, like behind the eyes or between the ears, that consciousness is just kind of pervasive. It's difficult, and no one I've ever explained it to has really understood it, so don't feel bad about it. Angelo DeLulo is probably the one I've heard that he and Kevin Shenelak that probably give the best explanation I've heard for it.
Mm.
You might
Well, I
look in on some of
understand.
his.
I understand the description, but I don't see why you would choose the word fullness for it.
Well, any word's going to be a poor choice of words. That's the problem with language. It's immersive experience might be better because fullness kind of implies there's an object inside of an object, like water inside of a glass, and that's not right. It's not one thing that's inside another. Immersive means it's all one thing, that experience and consciousness are the same thing. There are not even two sides of a coin, because there again is dualistic. It's all just one thing, experience and consciousness, just one thing, even though
So
you
it's
can't point to it
like
because you're still using experience and consciousness as two things, but it's not, it's just one thing. There is no word for it. Go ahead.
uh, like like wholeness.
Yes, wholeness would be good. um it's Wholeness would be good, but it lacks the implication of consciousness within. But maybe it doesn't. It depends on how you think of the word, and there are probably as many definitions as there are people. But um, immersive experience or wholeness would be okay. I mean, I'm being wishy-washy about it because no word is really captures it.
So what comes to mind here is that the old way, the way that we all end up before waking up, before a shift occurs, the old way is that we imagine what we're relating to is. Now, whatever is out there, other people, other things, we're imagining and we're relating to what we imagine without realizing that it's what we imagine, because we've also imagined that that is what is real. But because it's what we imagine, it's like that imagination is a shell over the top of something, let's call it absolute, whatever it is that we're relating to. And that shell of our imagination, the stories about that we take to be real, is just something like a coat or a shell on the outside of something. So it has this kind of hollowness that we relate to. And then when that gets seen through, when we recognize that that what the absolute is unknowable, and the consequence there is that all we have is our experiencing, which is our interpretation of that absolute, then we're inside that shell, and that's where it's full. There is no outer, or there is an outer, but it's seen to be an outer. But the inner, which is where it is, there's nothing inside the inner because it's already full. And that's why
Could
that
be.
word fullness pops up for me. Yeah.
Could be. It's the only true statement that if any statement can be true, that's relatively true, is there is only experience.
Yeah.
Stop. There's
Yeah.
no, it's not happening to anyone. It's not happening for anyone. There's just experience. And,
Yeah. So you
and
use the words only experience and just experience, which is kind of the old way of looking at things a bit, right? It's all experience. Makes more sense in terms of the fullness.
okay. Yeah, it's all experience with nothing else. Consciousness is inherent in it, but every time I try to expand the definition, I make it worse.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And of course, then we go, well, is experience a thing? Experiencing. Oh, okay. So as soon as we change it from a noun called experience into a verb called experiencing, then we come closer to the reality of it.
Yes.
And because it's a
Yes.
moving target, it becomes even harder to kind of see it as the fullness. But when you recognize that there is nothing other than that,
Right.
that
It's
is
all verbs.
all, that is everything. Yeah. Then it
It's
is
all
really
verbs.
full. Yeah. Yeah.
And we tend to objectify it, and that's an inherent language
And that's
limitation. But
turning
yeah,
it back into a noun, isn't it?
right, right.
Mm.
It's just so hard to speak to people in active terms, verbs, without objects, without subject object. It's it doesn't make much sense.
Well, language is designed around subject object, isn't it?
Yes, inherently divisive.
I also wanted to ask, because you said it's not that I don't care about the world. When you're talking about emptiness, that everything is empty, it's you saw it's all a story, but it's not that you don't care about the world. And I if I have it right, for me it's like it's not that I don't care, but I care just because it so happens that I do care, and I don't care because it's so important to care about the world.
So you're saying how, if I'm understanding your question, how can caring and seeing the emptiness coexist at the same time?
Yes, how it is for me, and if it is like this for you.
It is a paradox, and it is something that comes up. It's a paradox throughout literature. It's like, if you see the emptiness, how can you be touched? If you see, but saying that you see the emptiness, you can see it as a play, but you're still in the play. Suffering, if I see something sad, I'm sad. If I see something happy, I'm happy. I'm touched by it, even though I can see that it is all a story. The whole world is a story. But yet, I am part of that story, and happy and sad and being touched by suffering and misery is part of the story of this story right here. Now, I don't know if is there such a thing as escaping that during the human lifetime? I don't know. Even Buddha said that there is suffering within this life. You know, you would have to ask yourself, what would it be like to completely escape suffering, and which would be escaping from all human emotion, and I'm not sure that's something to be sought after. So I can see that it's all a story, but it's a very enveloping story.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
immersive in the sense that I am part of it. And all the whole range of human emotion is involved in the story.
Something clicked for me that was really big here, and this is that when I've been confronted in the past with somebody having a nihilistic experience, I've always said that this is an incomplete awakening. Now that's a really gross way of putting it, right? But I'm saying that the reason that they're stuck in nihilism is because they haven't seen enough to move past it. And what you just said, Paul, really put it into context for me. Somebody who's stuck in the emptiness phase could be described as having a nihilistic experience, okay? Because nothing means anything in the emptiness. We've just negated what used to be there, right? But it's the next move from the emptiness into the fullness that changes the whole experience, right? The moment we get into the fullness phase of that transition, life becomes quite magical, becomes very full, becomes very, I won't say meaningful because that's an old way of looking at things, but the feeling is it's very meaningful. Everything is meaningful. It's not
Yeah.
that there's any actual meaning.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I agree. I think a lot of people do, well, I say a lot, a number of people do go through kind of a dark stage afterwards, um, because of seeing the emptiness of the conceptual world. And many describe it as the dark night of the soul. The honeymoon's over, and things like that, although that's a very broad term. But some people, I think well, Marius, I think he left. I think he said he went through a brief period of nihilism after his awakening there, which, I guess I think he kind of shook it off, but it's very, very common. And I, I was fortunate that I didn't really have that. Everything was going in my favor, it seems to me, when it happened for me.
Yeah,
And there
yeah, me
was
too. Yeah.
none of the negative aspects of it.
Yeah, and well, now from this conversation, I would say the explanation for me was that I went straight into the fullness stage, and so the emptiness stage was it it, it happened in a matter of seconds, kind of thing. When seeing that all there was story, well, it wasn't. There wasn't even a seeing that there was only story. It was already. I was already in the fullness when I was able to describe. So I had my awakening where the recognition that this, which is my interpretation of my experience, and that didn't occur to me at the time, but there was just this, and it was really full. And then I was asked about, does a self exist? And then it became really obvious in reflection that the self was only stories.
Yeah.
And so there was a reflection backwards to the emptiness, but it was a conceptual emptiness at that point because the
Yeah,
fullness was already here.
I follow
Yeah,
you. You would have a different perspective of emptiness coming from fullness, which I have now, but I didn't really have at the time. I had to, my experience was just kind of the emptiness there. And then, but yes, I can look back and describe it better now for having been through it, I think. But yeah, you were,
yeah,
it sounds like you went right into it. And
yeah.
I've known other people that talked about that. There were some people, actually, some of the older guides over at LU used to describe it in that term. I can't remember which ones it was. There was three or four of them that just kind of popped right out and described it in the same terms of fullness.
Mm,
It's interesting perspective.
yep.
It's
So here's the next question becomes up, and I'm thinking of you, Bianca, here. If you're a bit stuck in the emptiness stage, then you've got this idea that nothing means anything, and it's a bit flat and all of that stuff. That's great. That's really great. That means
But
that you're in
yeah.
transition. Yeah.
But I am a happy nihilist. For me, it doesn't make sense to call it Dark Night. It's
Yes.
not. It's
Well,
oh,
that's good. Yeah.
good, good.
because when there is this emptiness, and I don't know, sometimes I visualize it like a vast steppe, no, like a prairie
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
with a vast sky, and there is just grass and no direction, nothing. It's just that there is no meaning, no importance, no
Yeah.
value to
Yeah.
anything.
This,
And for me, it was what can you do in this prairie? You can
I
go
can tell you.
somewhere,
Like,
but I know I I've you dance.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. See, it's empty. It's empty because you're looking to the horizon for something, right? But if you bring your gaze back to your feet, it's full of fucking wonderful grass and little rocks and probably got little animals running through it, and yes, and you can dance in that. That is a solid foundation for you to walk on and to dance on. And it's actually very, very full. It's only when you look for the horizon and look for something that it appears to be empty. So look at your feet. Stop looking at the horizon. Look at your feet. It's all there, very full. Oh, I'm all excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could look at the belief that there's something that needs to be done. Whatever is going to show up is going to show up. And there's no you to
Yeah,
need to do anything. It'll show you. A prairie showed up, but it's okay. It's prairie. What's next? What's
Yeah.
next? It really is magical, as the way Vince describes it. It's the show. That's what we used to call it, the show.
yeah. So yeah, for me, it's like when I care about the world, this caring is the dance that I make.
Yeah.
Right.
If I don't care, that is the dance that I make.
Yeah. Well, in Hinduism, it's called, I think, the dance of Shiva, which is the dualistic nature of existence, which is the positivity and the negativity constantly dancing back and forth and constantly changing, which is a pretty good analogy, I guess, as good as you can get within concepts. Yeah, whatever shows up, and it's fine.
And by showing up, I'm hearing Paul say, whatever we recognize already exists.
Yeah,
So showing up is the act of recognition.
right. It's here. It's just conceptual, not conceptual, whatever it is, it seems to be here, and it just shows up. You know, you open your eyes in the morning, and blah blah, life is here.
So you
So
you already, Bianca, you already said, I know what to say. I can dance. You actually already knew that. But I wonder if your idea of dancing was again a conceptual idea, when in fact the act of dancing would be the feeling of your feet on the prairie, the feeling of your feet on and off, the feeling of the weight of your body as you bounced up into the air and landed again, and so on. That's the experience. Right? And you and the prairie are not separate. You're interacting with each other. You're the same thing.
All part of it. It's the total sensorial interaction with whatever this story is, and the highs and the lows of it.
Yes, there was a viral uh, uh, viral movie on YouTube quite like 20 years ago. So, where the hell is Matt?
Is who?
Where
the
the
hell is who?
hell is Matt?
Matt.
Matt was just a dude
Okay.
who had a corporate job and left it and traveled the world. And everywhere he went, he made this stupid dance like this. And and in this YouTube movie, it's I don't remember. It's Sahara Desert. It's Petra. It's it's Tokyo. This crossroad, very big crossroad in Tokyo, and every time I watch this, I cry. I have tears, and for the first time it was when he's also on Antarctica, and there's snow and this little small figure doing stupid dance, and every time I cry because it's like for me he's embodying all the humanity and all this wonders, nature wonders, and this architecture. All
I'll have to
of
look it up.
this, all of this, just this stupid dance.
Sounds fun.
And it's so beautiful.
Where the hell is Matt? I'll look it up. It's probably still around.
Original, because there were more.
Okay. I actually like stuff like that, seeing, because I don't really travel much, never really traveled much. I like seeing stuff from all over the world. It constantly amazes me, the rest of the world.
Yeah, somebody was at a group meeting the other night, and they were walking around with their camera on the Zoom thing, and they were in Vienna, and in the background was just buildings and trees and things like that in the background. But I was fascinated by, this is the first contact I'd had with this part of the world, and all of a sudden I'm going, wow, it's kind of like here, it's just there's vegetation and building and people and color. The colorfulness of it was a big deal for me. Yeah. It's funny how we imagine other parts of the world that we don't know in some kind of a grayscale image rather than a colourful image. But there it was. Yeah. It was, I noticed that I noticed it.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I saw something on Dennis the other day, and they were draining the street. You know, they gondolas all up and down. They were draining the streets and cleaning everything out and everything as much as they could. And I didn't realize the whole city of Venice is built on an old primeval forest. It's all built on trees. It's a primeval forest from millions of years ago. It's petrified or something, and everything's built on top of it. And it's flooded. It used to be on land, and it's all flooded. It's everything's built on trees, on the tops of trees.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Mm. There's no end to amazement, is there?
No, no, the internet is just so
Well,
revolutionary.
yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. And even just YouTube, wow, my mind boggles at the the size of the servers that must exist to keep all of those YouTube channels going and all of that. There's just millions and millions of things. You know, you can. I've wanted to try and see what's wrong with a particular something or some household item I've got, and I just put in the model number of it, not even the name of it, just the model number, and I get a manual. I get I get somebody
Yeah,
showing me how to fix it. It's just amazing, you know. There's almost
yeah.
no end to what's there. Yeah,
I've
it's
fixed so many
incredible.
appliances doing that. My washing machine, my dryer, it's like you say, it's somebody has put it on there. Some little fix it guy somewhere has fixed this particular thing in your house and made a video about it. And I'm just like, that's so
Yeah,
great.
it's a mind
It,
boggle though, isn't it? It's just amazing.
and it's the complete wide range of human experience.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter how crazy a thing you put in there, there'll be something. Now, arguably, the crazier it is, there might be less content on it, but somebody somewhere has read a book on something in history that you've run across and has made a video about it. So it's just a wealth of knowledge that is just unbelievable. I mean, you just think about just this meeting, what has come about relatively recently, as far as the non-dual community is becoming so expansive now. It's
mm,
um it's really something. There's so much available for people. I I keep thinking that the the realization movement, the non-dual realization movement, I keep thinking it's just going to accelerate and become something really to change society.
yep, I hope so. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I was a nerd. I mean, I had my wife and I ran a computer shop before we retired, but we retired 20 years ago or something. And so I was a bit of a nerd, and I was on the internet back when we only had dial-up modems, and where the only way you could talk to somebody else was on a bulletin board, you know, and it was pretty onerous and I've still got that sound of the dial-up modem in my head.
Never get that out of my head.
Yeah.
That thing would grang and squeak, and my father was in the next office, and he raised Cain about it. Turn that thing down, and we had to go in through AOL to get to this
Yeah, yeah.
internet thing, and it's like, oh
And
God,
and
it's
there was I
somebody.
searched the internet from bottom to top for non-dual stuff, I didn't even know the term non-dual, but I was looking for this stuff, and there was just nothing there, you know. Like
Mm.
and then the odd thing started to turn up, you know, and it was very little. And now, oh God, there's millions and millions, as you say, of YouTube videos and books and things out there that just the proliferation has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I've been really happy to see the movement towards bringing a lot of the old Buddhist and Hindu stuff forward, which has been, you know, the current spiritual movement came out on the internet first, but now I'm seeing people, scholars and things like that, that are bringing a lot of the old ancient work, a lot of the old ancient Hindu stuff and Buddhist stuff, and
Yep.
bringing it out so that people can get that older perspective on non-duality, as well as the current generation interpretation of people going around and making the spiritual circuit, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Mm. Mm. How's life for you at the moment, Ramesh? I can see you jumping out of your skin with enthusiasm for it, says he with a ironic or well, not really sarcastic twist, but a twist anyway. Yeah.
I don't know.
Has it changed since we last spoke?
No, nothing changed.
Oh, that's a bit heavy, isn't it? Is it possible for you to imagine that none of the external circumstances change, although they are constantly changing, but let's say they're essentially the same, but something shifts inside you that gives you not a different understanding, but a different experience of those things, and that experience turns into something actively positive. Is it possible for you to imagine that possibility?
Yeah, sometimes I'm able to. Or
So
maybe I have before. Like seeing something from different perspective and the experience it changed.
so can you recognize stories that seem to push and pull the actual different perspectives in and out of being present? The fact that sometimes you can have that perspective where it's just all those things that you now feel are heavy and oppressive and not good, unpleasant. You sometimes have that perspective where it's not that they become pleasant, but that they become, well, I don't know how to describe it. Would you say meaningful? They become a bit more positively or meaningful in a positive way. But that perspective comes and goes. It seems to come and go of its own, eh? Now, do you recognize that there's some stories about what makes it come and go?
Stories about a story about it, or how stories affect the experience.
Well, why is it there sometimes and not other times? Why is it not there at the moment? That's the story that I'm talking about.
I don't know, but it's related to thoughts and stories.
Okay, so that's another story about the story, that it's related to thoughts. And can you now get a feel for the thoughts that bring it or stop it from coming or whatever? Can you feel what is the flavor of the thought or of the thoughts that either bring it or stop it from coming? Can you contact that feeling now?
Stop what exactly?
Ask me that again.
You said to stop it, the stories that stop it, or stop what?
Stop the experience from being present, the experience that you've had from time to time that's not there at the moment, of it being okay for all this stuff to be there. That different perspective that makes this heaviness okay. I presume it's not okay at the moment. Would you call it suffering?
At the moment,
Yes, at the moment.
no.
No, not suffering.
Yeah, there's less resistance, I can say.
Mm-hmm. So would you go as far as to say that this would be that this, whatever you call it, this unpleasantness, if you like, would be okay if there was no resistance? That would be like 100% okay if there was zero resistance. But that the degree of suffering is proportional to the degree of resistance that appears. And that resistance is the stories of it not okay. Would you agree with that, or would you vary that?
It depends. Like having resistance can cause suffering, but if it's about the experience, but also the resistance can be about having the experience. I don't know if that makes sense. Like the experience is happening to me.
It's tricky stuff, isn't it? So there is the experience of the circumstances, and then there is the experience of resistance to it.
Yeah, the resistance can happen against whatever happening
Mm, mm.
or against it's happening to me.
What is resistance?
Whatever makes me feel unable to stay with the experience and just wanting to dissociate or run away.
The desire to run away?
Yeah. Or not to feel the experience.
So that's an overlay again. What I imagined Paul was asking you was, how do you experience the resistance?
Yes. Next question.
It's easy to bring on the experience. All you have to do is think about the circumstances and you'll experience it again.
Do you mean the experience, like the physical experience?
Yes, 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 very much so.
Intense, like tension and contraction
Yes,
in this
yes.
area.
So when you call it resistance, are you aware of that tension in the body? Or are
Yeah,
you in your head somewhere with the idea of resistance?
I can be aware of it or sometimes in my head.
Mm. So what happens when you put your focus on that tension in your body? You kind of gestured towards your shoulders in particular. I thought so that tension, you can feel that in your shoulders. When you put your focus on that tension, what happens to it?
It gets more intense and it's like it's squeezing.
Mm-hmm. And stay with it. Keep doing it. Keep, don't imagine where it's going to go. Just stay with what's actually there. That movement towards more tension. Just keep focusing on that. So would you? I'm imagining that it reached a peak and then changed. Was that your experience or something else?
Yeah, slightly.
When you say resistance and you say it's the desire to run away, the term that comes to mind for me is fear. Would you say that resistance is fear for you?
Yeah.
Is there something about this subject, non-duality, that you fear?
Don't try and make sense of it. Just report what first popped up into your mind when Paul asked that.
I yeah, there's something scary, but I can't justify it.
So there's the fear of some loss. What do you fear
Yeah,
losing? What are you afraid will be lost from experience?
the experience itself.
You mean all of experience will just disappear?
Yeah,
The world will just disappear?
I know it doesn't make sense, but yeah.
Does
Don't worry about
does that
making sense. Mm.
does it but do you have any evidence based on what you know about non-duality that if you realize this, that the world will disappear? Do you have any evidence in literature you've read or any of the non-dual stuff? Is there any evidence that the world disappears, or is that just an irrational fear?
No, there's no evidence.
So really, there's nothing to stop you from moving forward into that fear, is there?
I don't know what you mean to move forward.
Well, to face the fear and see it as irrational, that it's to see that it's the monster under the bed that really isn't there. I mean, you get out of bed now without worried about monsters underneath. Like your parents told you when you were a little kid, you see that it's irrational fear. There's really nothing to fear here. The world won't disappear. And all you're doing is seeing what you already are. What else do you fear losing? Anything? I mean, the world is a lot. I don't know. I don't know how much wider we
Yeah.
could get on that, but is there something else you're afraid of losing?
What I mean, like the world as I relate to it, or
Well, relating to the world is happening now, isn't it? And there's no I. There's just relating. The I is an add-on.
So the relating doesn't disappear?
There's only relating.
But isn't relating duality? Or
There's no I relating. It's just relating. It doesn't need an I. Relating is inherent in the world. It doesn't need an I. The only thing that gets lost is the belief in I, the belief in the monster under the bed. You're relating right now, and there is no I.
then what's the problem? What's
There is no problem.
What's the point of
That's
this?
the point.
You've mentioned before, Ramis, a fear of death. Do you imagine that waking up will bring a death? It will bring a death of a belief, but do you imagine it's a death of something more than that?
I'm not sure what will remain. How or
Okay, so that's a good one. You're not sure of what would remain. Are you sure of what exists now?
it, it feels like it's familiar.
Mm. So can a delusion be familiar?
Maybe.
So if that delusion dies, and it will, then you're faced with the unfamiliar. Is that where the fear exists, in the unfamiliar?
Not knowing what even is not familiar is
That's pretty scary, eh?
I feel it's I don't have trust.
But you have the opposite of trust.
I was sharing with a friend like a few days ago a memory I had. I never shared this memory with anyone, and it was difficult to talk about it. And And I remember I was in a situation where I was alone and feeling helpless. And she told me about, can I get closer to myself as a child and ask him to trust me, that I will protect him. And I couldn't. She asked me, can you imagine someone else that you can trust? Like a god, for example, or an
Mm.
angel, or whatever. And nothing worked.
So just to clarify that more, it was the child that was unable to trust, or you that was unable to trust now?
It's the same experience of not trusting.
Yeah, yep, okay.
I couldn't even make a difference between what is me or what is the child. Like,
Yeah, good, that's good, yeah. So when you say not trust, if you know, trust being the absence of mistrust, right? There was mistrust there. Can you identify that mistrust a bit more accurately? Can you see what it was? What was that? What would you call the opposite of trust? Would you mistrust doesn't really work? Would you call it suspicion, or would you call it feeling threatened? What would you call the opposite of trust?
yeah, mistrust makes
Yep.
sense.
Okay. So if you're having trouble trusting, then what you're relating to is that mistrust. Can you see that mistrust? Can you feel that mistrust? I presume you're going to experience that as something to be afraid of.
What do you mean by afraid of? Because I already feel the mistrust.
Yeah. So what can you give that mistrust some form? What does it appear as to you? Is it something inside you or something outside you?
It feels outside.
Hmm. So we could call it circumstances.
It feels more about people than circumstances.
Okay. So if you allow your imagination to go, so you've got people being somehow a threat. Would that be accurate? Without being too specific, just the feeling of,
Yeah,
yeah? Now those people, are they specific people or people in general? So the first thing, grab the first thing that comes to mind. Don't think about it.
In
Just
general,
in general, right? Yeah. So what comes to mind here is to move from this, let's say, this threatening crowd of people back into this self, back into Ramiz. And if you turn the focus around on Ramiz in this situation of threat, this crowd of people or people in general, is Ramiz young or your age?
it doesn't
Doesn't work? Okay.
it doesn't have an age.
Hmm. So this threat, of people, does it have any intention?
Or do you mean like what is the benefit of it?
Well, or what is the danger? What is this threat of people going to do to Ramiz? What's their intention for Ramiz? Their threatening intention. Are they going to harm him?
More force him to do something he doesn't want.
Okay, so they're going to manipulate him, or they're actually more than manipulate. They're going to force him to do something. Force him to be or force him to act.
Both.
Hmm. How? Force him to be how? Force him to act how?
To be not scared, to be brave.
So the big thing is they're going to force him, their intention is to force him to be how he's not, to be different to how he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're going to force him to be brave, then how he is what?
He's weak.
Weak. Right. And that's going to put you in a really dangerous situation, isn't it? If you're going to have to pretend to be brave when you don't feel it, you're going to get hurt, would you say?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was a bit presumptuous of me, that one. That was pushing too hard. So what's the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you what would be the consequences of them forcing you to be brave?
I will fail.
You would fail, right? Okay, there you go. Yeah. And the consequences of failing? Come on, you know the consequences of failing. It's happened many times. What are the consequences of failing?
Being made fun of.
Say that again. I missed it. Sorry.
Being made fun of or
Yep, I got it. Yeah. Ridiculed. Mm.
Ramiz, how many times have you succeeded
in what?
in everything? How old are you?
Oh, 30.
So you've been here 30 years, which is no small task, especially in today's world. So you're here after 30 years of life. So how many times did you succeed?
I don't know how to define being succeed at something.
But you do acknowledge that you've had a series of successes in life, don't you?
If staying alive till 30 is a success, can be considered one.
Well,
So
survival is the biggest success, isn't it?
I don't care about survival.
Huh?
I don't care about surviving.
And yet you do.
Yeah, I don't care enough to consider it a success or some achievement.
Well, if you're not going to consider success and achievement, why consider failure as a non-achievement? Can't have it both ways.
Maybe failure is an achievement. Have you failed your way to existing now, 30 years later? Have you failed your way into this place?
Yeah, maybe. I never thought I would come all this time.
So it occurs to me that this whole thing is about the world seeing you as you really are, and that's weakened a failure. So what if the world sees you that way? Is it your business how the world sees you? Or is it you that will see yourself as weak and a failure, and that's actually important? But you know you're a weak and you're weak and you're a failure. You know that. You believe that about yourself. So nothing new there, is there? So what does it matter? Does it matter?
Well, I can say it doesn't, or pretend that it doesn't, as I
But it
used to.
does. Yeah. But it does matter to you. Yeah. Can you see how it matters? Where does that mattering come from?
How my body respond to it.
So what it matters is how you're going to feel about it. So if you were to consider what kind of movie would you watch to make yourself feel good? Would you watch a comedy, or would you watch an action hero, or would you what kind of movie would you watch to make yourself feel good? What kind of movie do you, in your experience, makes you feel good? Do you like science
Comedy.
fiction? Sorry, comedy? You like a comedy? So you could watch a comedy movie and you could be feeling quite good in yourself as you watch it. And then when the movie ends, you go back to watching a different movie, the movie about Ramiz being a failure and weak, and that makes you feel bad. Just a different movie, eh? It's a wonder you're not addicted to comedy movies.
True.
There is not enough of them. That's
Yeah,
actually good.
the quality of comedy these days is a bit short, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
I have an opposite question, Ramiz. Do you have an idea of what success looks like to you?
Not feeling scary.
So, in order for you to feel successful, you want to not feel afraid.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anyone in the world is successful.
That's true.
I mean, I'm certainly not then, nor have I ever been. So what if I'm going to do like a little Byron Katie? If you didn't have that thought telling you in order to be successful, I have to not be afraid. Without that thought, now what? So in other words, too, who are you without the thought?
I don't feel like being scared is an issue in an absolute sense, but that I'm constantly being told there's nothing to be scared of.
Well, but again, if the thought of fear was just taken out of it, like for me, it didn't. I had to look at it and go, so what if I am scared? Instead of trying to get rid of that I was scared or thinking that I shouldn't be scared, I just was scared. So it's kind of I started to befriend it and not wish it were gone.
Congratulations, you're now successful at being afraid.
Truly.
Good one.
You get a ribbon.
Yeah, it seems like that's an unrealistic expectation to not have any fear. Again, that's never happened for me. That I didn't have the thought that tied that I'm not successful. I didn't want the fear, but I didn't have.
It's not a sign of failure.
Right, it wasn't a sign of failure. It was until it wasn't. Like it felt like it was until I questioned wait a minute, why am I thinking that having fear, that I shouldn't have it? Why am I making fear be the enemy? It's there.
But you're told all your life you've got to be brave.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't feel good. I mean, there's no doubt about that fear doesn't feel good.
Most successful people do feel it all the time, or most of the time.
Yeah, the more I just would question the thought, why do I think I shouldn't be afraid? And there was a lot of thoughts behind it. Oh, well, I should be old enough for this. I shouldn't still be having these fears about this thing. And it was like, well, I do. So why do I keep arguing with what is here? That's not helping. Like, that just makes me feel worse. So the more I just accepted, okay, there's fear here. It has that paradoxical relief from not fighting it. I mean, it did for me. Again, I'm only speaking from my own experience.
Mm.
Well, it just makes you aware of possible danger. I mean, it serves a purpose.
Right. It totally makes sense. I mean, I don't think anyone's fear is there except for any reason that it's trying to protect you from something. It's not necessarily a valid protection anymore, but that's why it shows up.
So
But
suddenly I
I
realised,
think something is off. I mean, being brave means to feel fear, but not to act on it. Does being brave means something else to you, Ramis? Not feel fear?
I don't think it matters what is the definition of being brave, but the experience is I'm being told my fear is not valid. Is I should not be afraid. And if I'm afraid, there is something wrong with me.
Who's telling you all this?
Well, my brain. But yeah, most people telling me this.
the world tells you that, yeah. So just to throw a spanner in the works here, maybe I should keep quiet. But you know, here there is no success and no bravery and no fear. I see bravery and success both as totally ridiculous stories. Not even black humor. They're just stupid. I have no concept of any reality with bravery or success. They're just stories that overlay anything, but they don't exist in reality. And maybe that's the reason why there's no fear here. But I can remember that I was fearful. I can't remember what it felt like, but I can remember that I was. And I can easily see how the world has been telling you to be brave and successful all your life. What a ridiculous fucking story that is. And you've bought it. You believe them.
I had no choice.
Well, that's right, because it's so pervasive, isn't it? Yeah. So here we got a bit of a recursive thing going, a circular thing going, where when you wake up, you'll see that as ridiculous and you don't need it anymore, but you need to wake up to see that you need to wake up. You know, or you need to not see it in order to wake up, but you won't not see it until you do wake up, or something. Yeah.
And there is no I to measure either one.
Yeah. That's another ridiculous story. Yeah.
My friend told me that this experience of not trusting or about this memory, that the memory is happening right now, and the experience of it is defined by what I believe about it,
Yes.
and it can change if I change how I see it.
If how you
But
see it changes, not if I change.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
I
you
don't know
have had
how.
moments though. You've had moments where that's happened, haven't you? Can you remember that you have had moments of experiencing that?
I don't know. I doubt the significance of this moment. But I'm open to see differently.
So that's huge. Do you get how big that is? That you are open to it means that you accept the possibility of it, and that in order to accept the possibility of it, you imagine that it can happen, and that is an opening. That is huge. That is really a big deal. What does it feel like in your body to accept the possibility of that?
The body feels more still or
More what?
still, like
Steady.
Steady. Right. I didn't. Yeah. Mm.
Something I noticed that whenever I feel good about, in general, I don't care about choices. It doesn't feel heavy. I don't feel hesitation. So is that true? Like that
Mm.
it doesn't matter?
Well, would you go as far as to say that when you're feeling that there is a trust that what's required will happen, that there is no need to make a choice, that life will decide for you? Would that be an accurate description or a variation on that?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's the point is like there isn't hesitation as
Mm,
usually is.
mm,
And I'm not sure if this is the lack of hesitation is because I'm being unclear or maybe because I'm deluded. I don't know.
mm,
Or because it doesn't even matter. Um,
mm.
or maybe because I'm expecting that whatever apparent choice doesn't have, it shouldn't change. Uh, I don't know, I'm just thinking.
Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it? So would you say it is just a relaxed flowing under those circumstances when that's occurring for you? Like
Yeah,
even the
but like
idea of thinking about a choice seems unnecessary.
it cannot be as a choice. Like, yeah, I'm choosing this and that's what I want. And I'm not hesitant about it. But then I'm expecting myself somehow to keep making the same choice.
So do you recognize something comes along to end that experience for you? It takes you back into the fear or back into the other one? How do you go from not worrying about things to worrying about things? Does that get triggered, or does it sneak up on you, or does it just, it's not there one moment and it is there the next? Or do you go to sleep not worrying and wake up worrying? So what brings it on? What brings on this unpleasant experience?
When I start having contradictory thoughts or agendas inside me.
Are there contradictory thoughts, or is life presenting you with contradicting situations?
I don't understand the difference.
Well, you say you don't worry about choice when life seems to be not throwing contradictions or alternative possibilities Isn't it when you have doubts about making choices, just that life isn't presenting clear possibilities to you? In other words, is it you or is it just life the way it shows up? The path isn't always clear. Is that a reflection of you or it's just life?
I don't see how it would matter or make difference. Is it in me or life? But the issue is that there is some contradiction, some two opposites, or that's creating some conflict.
What
Maybe
I'm
life
asking
is
is that your confusion or is that just life showing up not clearly?
so it's not my fault that there is confusion or there
Right,
isn't the clarity, or it's not
right.
somebody's fault.
That it isn't your fault and there is no you to have fault. Life shows up as contradictory and not clear sometimes. There's a limit to what you know. The only one to whom life would be clear, I guess, would be God. What I'm getting at is, do you consider it a failure that life shows up as seemingly confused sometimes?
No.
Okay.
And if a thought turns up rather than life, if a thought comes along that does it, is that not just life too? I mean, you don't control where your thoughts come from, do you? I
No,
mean,
but
if you could control your thoughts, you certainly wouldn't have those negative ones. So if a thought turns up that does it, is it not exactly the same as life circumstances turning up, also out of your control? In fact, what is in your control? Can you control anything?
apparently no, recently. But maybe at some time I was able.
At some point you were deluded about it. So if you have no control over any of that stuff, how can you be a failure or a success? Does the tree control the breeze that comes along and moves the branches, the foliage? Does a tree control the breeze, how the breeze affects it? Well, I tell you, it controls the breeze as much as you control life or your thoughts. Exactly the same. Can you see that?
But there's the possibility of a change that doesn't have to be made by someone. Like when you see some kind of belief that doesn't make any sense, and you drop it, and that makes changes and things.
Yeah, but you don't drop it, do you? Because you see it, it changes. But you don't say, I'm going to stop believing that. I mean, you can do that all you like. Okay, stop believing that you're a failure. Go on, stop it. It's not like you can, is it? But it will happen.
I I don't see how it would happen.
Right? So nothing ever
By
happened that you didn't see how it happened.
I presume that some conditions are needed for things to
Hmm.
happen in a certain way.
Right. And you have no control over those conditions, do you?
No, but maybe seeing how, um,
Yeah.
maybe seeing makes the changes. I don't know.
Yeah. And so do you have control over what you see or what you don't see?
No,
So again, it's just a happening. So under certain unknown circumstances, seeing happens and a belief changes. No option but to give up here, is there? Here you go, you saw it.
doesn't feel like I can give up.
But you just did, for a moment anyway. Of course you don't feel like you can give up. How can you do that? How can you control giving up? Giving up happens just like everything else. It just happens, or not. And giving up happens when you see that there is no option but to give up, because you can't control giving up or not giving up. Can you control the opposite of giving up, whatever that is? Control? Obviously not.
No,
You've acknowledged you have no control. So what is no control? It's giving up, isn't it? So we've got a weird paradox here. How can it feel like you're not giving up when you're giving up? Because
it
feeling
doesn't
like
feel.
you're not giving up is just an illusion. So you can feel like you've got control, but know that you don't have control. Those two things exist quite happily beside each other. If you can't control giving up or not giving up, can that be described as giving up? It certainly can't be described as having control, can it?
Depends about who are we talking about. Or what?
So what do you have control of?
I mean, maybe I don't have control about giving up or having control, but maybe something else does.
Good twist. Well, you mean God? or what? Yeah. Yeah. So you're serious? Something else might have control? So investigate that a little bit. What could that something else possibly be? Just be wild in your imagination. What possibly could be that something else that actually has control? Some mysterious
The
force in nature?
life itself?
So is life a thing? Life has some substance? No. Does it have substance? Can you bottle life? Take a sample of it and examine it?
Does it have to be?
Right. So so we can have this mysterious non-substantial something called life that has control.
I'm not saying that it has control.
But
Maybe
it could be. Yeah, okay.
maybe it has the opposite of control. Like it's just spontaneous. It's letting go or giving up, like continuous movement of giving up.
So wouldn't we then recognize that what we're calling life is just a concept that overlays a whole lot of conditions and circumstances and things that we describe as giving up? That 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 life itself doesn't exist as a thing. It's just a description of an almost infinite number of possibilities even.
Yeah,
And the
it's
closer we get and examine it, the more those possibilities become discrete happenings, none of which have any substantiality. It's just when we put them together and we call it life that it seems like it's something, but it's not actually something at all. I mean, you're there and I'm here and Paul's over there, etc. And that's just a description. Doesn't really relate to what is actual at all, does it? We could say life has made this Zoom meeting possible. And then if we go in closer, if we if we zoom in on the Zoom meeting, then we see details that, well, you have to have some kind of device, a computer or a phone or something. The internet has to exist. You have to have the motivation. Oh, now there's something quite ephemeral, that the motivation that brought you to this meeting, you know, we can't measure that either. Yeah, we might be able to measure the fact that the internet exists, or the fact that your computer exists, or the fact that you are there looking at your computer, but we can't measure the motivation that was involved in it happening. But the complexity of this is infinite, none of which it can exist by itself. It's only the culmination of all of this, which we might call life, that's made it possible. So how can life be responsible for anything, and especially what turns up for you? You don't have to zoom in very far to see that they're just a whole lot of seemingly disparate conditions, circumstances, some of which are tangible and some of which are not. So come back to, what's that something that could have control?
Could control happens without a subject?
Now you're grasping at straws. So it needs a subject and an object to exist, right? Because there has to be something controlling something else. So how far do we go before it becomes totally ridiculous, this whole idea of control? Surely you're already seeing it. Yet it feels like it. I give absolute credibility to feeling like there's control. But the existence of actual control, that's totally ridiculous. Do you not see that? You don't want to let go of that one, eh?
I'm not saying that there has to be control. I'm thinking about because control doesn't have to be active or
Okay, so maybe you're talking about consequences rather than control.
yeah, that things has some conditions affects what's happening.
Yeah, I go along with that. Conditions, circumstances, yes.
So maybe life is like playing with itself, yeah, seeing something and then seeing it from different way, it changes how it's being experienced.
So you're giving life some intention. Would that be accurate?
I don't know.
So you're saying life, if we examine it, because this is the trick, isn't it? Is every time you say something, we just want to examine it closer. So if you say maybe life is doing something like that, then the idea is that life has to imagine some outcome and then manipulate circumstances to achieve that outcome. And as soon as you say that, it becomes ridiculous again, doesn't it? Do you think? Is it possible that life could have an intention? And for it to have an intention, it has to be able to imagine what it's intending. Could life do that?
So do you mean like, because if there isn't intention, then there is randomness, or
Okay, no, that's not a very accurate statement, and, but it seems to be random for sure. So to say there is no free will does not mean that it's deterministic. They're apparent opposites, but it's not the case. And so if every condition that turns up, let's say the culmination of certain conditions being present and being aligned is what causes a happening to happen. That's just a very general kind of thing. But the recognition that every one of those conditions itself rests on other conditions. So it takes conditions to make a condition that leads to some happening. And every one of those conditions rests on other conditions. And so there's a constant movement, a constant flow, which means that anything can happen. Nothing's determined, because you've only got to change any one of those conditions and the whole sequence changes. So there is no
maybe
free will, but it's also not deterministic.
I feel like we're saying the same thing.
Mm,
Uh,
okay.
maybe all possibilities are true or happening.
Mm, yeah, that concept of parallel worlds and possibilities also makes a lot of sense.
My question is, why do you need an answer?
Mm.
I don't. It's just
Well,
fun.
if the questions drop away, that's the end of it.
Well, that my experience that's slightly differently. That I experience that questions are fine, but just because a question exists doesn't mean an answer is required. In fact, the questions become quite full in themselves. The question is enough. An answer is just a weird overlay that's not required.
Well, what I'm pointing to is that the question assumes that there is something missing from right now.
Mm.
But whether you call it questioning or seeking, the two are interchangeable in my book.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, for me, questions are a statement of both not knowing and not needing to know. But I mean, that's a weird one. I get that. Yeah.
So, what is curiosity? That's another question.
It's not a question. Curiosity is waiting for what turns up. Being interested in what turns up. It's about the relationship to not knowing, which is an
It's simple.
exciting presence. Yeah, sorry.
It's a simple desire.
Is that desire inherent in the experience, or is it an add-on? Or
You could say both statements would be true and both statements would be false. Desire is simply a energetic movement. It's part of life, or it isn't. Again, the question is, why do you need an answer?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't see curiosity. Here the experience of curiosity is not a desire for something, but rather an expectation that something might reveal itself.
Yeah, that's good. An openness. It's childlike when you get down
Yeah,
to it. It's a sense of wonder. I mean, how do you put that into words? Do you need to?
there's an element of excitement about possibilities in that for me. But this is all amusing for you, Bianca.
I just thought it was a good question from Ramis. What about curiosity? Yes, it
Yeah,
is a question. What
yeah,
will turn up?
yeah.
What
Are you
is the
curious
question?
about that one?
I don't know. Sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. I mm, I think there is time for openness and there is time for closing. You know, even flowers close at night.
Yeah, I guess there's a constant movement of open, close, in and out, etc.
The
We
dance.
rely, yeah, a dance, yes. And being perfectly still is impossible, so why not any movement being a dance? A celebration of movement. How's life been
I
for you?
thought,
Oh,
oh, sorry.
no,
No,
you
it's
go.
okay.
You go. It's
I don't know if that's because also about this validation of feeling, it was true for me that some like I had some irrational hate, and I didn't know where it come from, and it mm, it turned out it needed validation, even though just to see that it had reasons. And now this question came from me for Ramis, can you trust your fear? For a time, you know, for today. Tomorrow it may it may be different, but
That's a good question. I will.
because I think for me it was that I had to trust my hate to start trusting myself.
Yeah, I get that. And the thing is, if it exists, there is no option but to trust it. Any mistrust of it is an attempt to change it. It's an attempt to negate it. So if it exists, trusting it, that it exists, and the validation would seem to me to be that you trust that it exists. We're not talking about the reason for it being there. We're talking about the fact that it is there. Trusting is the appropriate response to it. Only after that can it be put into perspective and change might happen. But until it's accepted as being there, that's not possible.
I think it's more than just being there.
Enjoyed it, everyone.
Well,
Gotta go.
oh, okay,
See y'all
Paul.
next week.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so you're talking about
for me it was to see the conditions,
that it's valid.
yeah, how it arose, and from that moment in the past it was, yeah, you're right,
Mm,
your rage is righteous.
mm,
and after that it went down.
mm. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? That the recognizing that it's there for valid reasons opens up the possibility that those reasons are now losing validity. Like what we once believed caused it, what we now believe changes it.
Yes, but in these circumstances but were in the past, it was right.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I was raging. So,
Yeah.
Were you always raging, or
hmm?
were you always raging, or did you uh, learn how to experience rage?
At this moment, I knew. And yeah, I called my mother, and my mother was so shocked. But I am cursing, and what happened to
So you were raging in the memory?
mm, raging? Yeah, angry.
Can you experience the rage now? Or
I can't hear you very well.
can you experience the rage now?
Right now?
Not
Right
exactly.
now?
I mean, is it
Is it
easy for
still
you to
there?
experience rage?
Mm.
It is
Is it
possible.
accessible to you? I mean,
Yes, I think. Depends on circumstances. I'm sorry, I feel I kept Janet from speaking.
No worries.
No, no. Yeah,
It's been a long time, Kenneth. How have you been?
it's been pretty awful.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel unsafe all the time. Sorry if I'm like cutting everybody off.
No, you're not.
You guys are
You're right.
talking. Yeah, I feel unsafe all the time now. Like, um, since recently, I keep distracting, dissociating, um, and subtle hesitation towards everything. That's what's happening. And I
Right,
feel it like it's very uncomfortable to like even go outside. I feel uncomfortable now. Something feels unsettled.
right. But I remember a time when you were flying.
Yeah. Flying?
Well, you were
Doing good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Before.
yeah, you were good for a long time. Yeah. So something happened and you
Yeah.
lost it. Was it a? Do you recognize a change point? Something that happened, or just a time?
Not really. As in, even then, I would feel disoriented once in a while. Then again, pretty good. Peace again, then disoriented. But now it's very uncomfortable. Um, I think it's like a lot of distraction. Before there
Mm,
was a lot of distraction too, but now it's very intense hesitation, um, resistance, lots of reactivity, uh, struggle. Um, I think the specific issue that has been going on these couple of days was there was a girl I was talking to, and she has been like very hesitant recently, and because of that, there's a lot of fears and grief coming up, like sadness. But it's not like a usually sadness is fine for me, but this is like very childhood feeling, and,
mm,
very
mm.
nasty sensation. It's also very easy to like forget about it by like dissolving into some sense of spaciousness. It's easy to like dissociate from it. So I usually have to have like some intention to really look at it very precisely. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
sadness.
So,
Yeah, that's
so
it.
yeah, that was a bit interesting. So, what when you said it's easy to dissolve into spaciousness, you describe that as dissociating.
Yeah.
So that spaciousness that you're talking about now, that you could get into now, how does that relate to when you were back then, when you were feeling really good? Would you call that spaciousness or clarity or what? However you would describe that, does it relate to this one, this feeling of spaciousness, this dissociation state?
The previous one, it felt more intimate, or it felt more grounded
Mm-hmm.
before. Like it didn't feel exhausting. Now it feels like I'm purposefully distracting myself. I know what the answer is. I just have to stop. Then the feelings would come. But I just can't stop distracting or like stop myself from dissociating. It
Right.
doesn't
Okay.
feel nice. It feels
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that previous state where you were feeling good, would you describe that as that you've lost it, that it's undone?
Uh, I don't really. It didn't. It doesn't matter that much to me. I don't think it's undone. Um. Uh. The previous state. Uh. It doesn't feel like it's undone. I'm not sure exactly.
Hmm.
Um, but it does feel very similar. This state and that state. Um,
It does feel very what?
it feels similar.
Similar. Yeah. Okay.
It-
Yeah.
it-
Yeah. Yeah. So I get this feeling that there's some, how can I put it? There's some part of you that says it's wrong to be in that state. That this what you're experiencing, this discomfort or this however you want to describe this state is something. Well, I don't know. The words that come here in my mind is this is more real than that other state. But there's something wrong with being in the other state that this one you should be experiencing. Does that make any sense to you?
Not really.
No.
Could
Okay.
you
Good.
explain that?
Yeah. No. I'm just playing with what came up in my mind. That see, there's some. So in that other state that when you call it dissociated, there's an implication that it's wrong to be in that
Mm.
state. And that makes this state more right than that state.
Yeah.
So what is wrong about that, or what is right about this?
As in right now, when you refer to this, you mean not dissociated.
Yes, this being not dissociated, yeah. Or why do you call that dissociated? Right. So that definition, that description of dissociated implies that there's something remiss about being in that state. There's something wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It has a sense of something's wrong. I need to fix it, but it's like beneath. It's like a background when I'm in that state. Now it feels like more connected. It feels right. What I'm doing there is wrong. That's how it
Right.
feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. So
The dissociation itself, sorry,
yeah, no, you go.
the dissociation itself isn't a problem. Like when I notice it, it doesn't cause self-judgment, but it does make me non-functional sometimes in extreme ways that I need to function. But it makes me very dysfunctional, avoidant. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay, yeah, all right. So then I would agree that there is something wrong with that dissociated state, but it's not that you're there, it's that you're not responsive to this world when you're there. So it is so the description dissociated is probably more accurate than I was originally thinking. You know, it is a case of not responding to
The
some
environment.
things that should be responded to, or that's it's appropriate to respond to. Yeah, okay.
Mm.
So if you were, we need another term for that state, right? To remove the implication that it's wrong. You know that. So when we say dissociated, but that other state, if you were able to be in that other state and be responsive to so-called real world circumstances, then that other state would be a preferable place to be rather than be in this place where you're suffering. Would you agree with that?
When I'm not dissociating, I'm not really suffering. Like when I'm not in that spaciousness, I am in sensation, or like I'm feeling something uncomfortable. It doesn't feel unsettled, but it feels like it feels uncomfortable, but it doesn't feel unsettled or restless or exhausting. So this state is more preferable to me than any state of dissociation or spaciousness. Yeah, I guess it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are certain elements of this state that if you could take them into the other state, then you'd be happy about the other state.
Yeah.
And those elements that you would like to be able to take would be some kind of responsiveness.
Yeah. And also not restlessness or not feeling restless or like looking for something and constantly looking for something, like unsettled. Yeah.
Mm. But the unsettled that you feel in that other state has to do with not being able to respond to what you feel in this state. Would that be right?
Yeah.
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 So if you could take the responsiveness from this state into the other state, then it would be complete and you would be pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. So now I get some substance to the idea of dissociation. Right. You're dissociating from the responsiveness of this state when you're in the other state. It's not that the other state
Yeah.
itself is dissociated. It's just that in that state, you're not responding to what you need to in this state. Yeah. Okay. So I'm inclined to see that as, in a way, that the label that comes is that in that other state, there's a sense of nihilism. There's a sense of nothing matters, nothing to be, no purpose.
I don't think that outright. Yeah. I don't think that outright, but it does feel like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So where I come to with this is that there is just something that you're not seeing clearly that causes that dissociation. There's just something that you're missing, some single little element of that you're missing out on.
Yeah. It feels related to that incident with the girl, the grief, some fear of abandonment. Usually I would go up into my mind and there would be like scenarios playing, kind of trying to like make me feel safe. I could notice it. Or there's fear of responsibility. It's generally fear, fear of just feeling.
Yep. Yeah, and you said abandonment. That's a big one. So when you are up in your mind there, you can see that you're avoiding that abandonment feeling that's in the background that the whole thing is based on, eh? So if you were to if it were to happen that you would investigate that feeling of being abandoned.
Yeah. Sorry, give me a second. I have to charge my phone.
Yeah, go for it.
I
Yeah,
have to put it in charge as well.
yeah, no worries.
A question came to me about abandonment. Like, what would I be scared more of? Being abandoned or abandoning someone?
Yeah, what comes up here is that you could only relate to abandoning someone if you have experienced being abandoned. Otherwise, you know, it wouldn't feel bad. You couldn't even relate to it. So if it is an issue that you might abandon someone, it can only feel bad because you've been abandoned.
Yeah,
That's what comes to mind anyway. Yeah.
I feel like it's the experience. Like you can't experience it, abandonment, without having both sides at the same time.
Mm.
Or maybe not being able to feel is a form of self-abandonment.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. If we zoom in closer to abandonment, it changes, you know. So let's take a newborn baby that's hungry and doesn't get fed straight away. Then it will experience some distress caused by the hunger. So does it take that it gets fed after it experiences hunger and cries, and it gets fed straight away, and then it has the expectation that it will get fed straight away, and then one day it doesn't get fed straight away, and that's when a sense of an expectation is not met. And is that when it experiences abandonment, or does it? What, you know? I mean, the word abandon doesn't really fit very well immediately, but it could develop into that over time. Or does it take an expectation of being cared for and then that not being fulfilled to generate an idea of abandoned? So where it comes from in the beginning can be much more than just a single event. It's a simple thing. It's going to be a fairly complex thing. And I suspect that every one of us goes through, at least develops this idea of being abandoned. All of a sudden, our support is not there, then we feel abandoned. But we have to expect our support to be there and then for it to not be there in order to experience being abandoned. If we never had it in the first place, it wouldn't exist as abandonment, would it? It would just be normal. So it's a tricky one. But every one of us, I think, does experience this idea of being abandoned. And that experience of, and it's a complex experience. We just use the word abandoned, but the reality is it's contact that's missing. It's It's feeling safe that's missing. It's a whole lot of things that are missing that we call abandonment. And it's in our DNA as a herd animal that we humans are, that abandonment becomes a survival issue. You know, we've known forever that isolation is a punishment, or being evicted from the tribe is a death sentence. You know, that so abandoned is very much a survival issue. So it is the big monster under the bed that we all have to some extent, I think. And so when we start to experience, when this gets triggered in us by whatever circumstances turn up, we run like crazy. That's our natural inclination, is to keep away from that. And it's only by, see, it becomes tricky to say, it's only by facing it that then there's implications of bravery and all sorts of other rubbish that comes in on that. But it's only by circumstances leading us to investigate it that we can put it into a proper context, that we can see that we're not really being evicted from the tribe. It's just, that's what it feels like. And you're very close, Kenneth, when you see that actual process happening, when you can see that you're up in your head trying to keep away from the intensity of the feelings that are there. You recognize that as abandonment, that's a big thing. Seeing the process that goes on in your head to keep away from that, that's a big advancement. That's huge. That means you're really, really close to seeing that, in fact, it's not the big boogeyman that you thought it was. It's not the monster under the bed, or that it is the monster under the bed, which is an illusion. But nevertheless, you're very close to that when you can see that. That's really positive.
Yeah. It's hard to notice it sometimes. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. I can hear you.
It feels like it's very prominent when I wake up in the morning. And immediately it's to like sleep more or do something, or just avoidance comes up when I wake up in the morning. I could feel like there's a lot happening down there, and there's just hesitation to even go. Yeah, I could like notice like there's impulses of feeling it. I could have mental images of her, and when I have mental images, there's like a feeling, and then immediately I try to avoid it. It's automatic. I'm not doing it. Yeah.
It will play out until it doesn't. It will. You know. there's nothing to do. What is happening is it's sorting itself out. And you have the foundation. You already have that foundation where you can see what's going on. But just be careful about the inclination to want to try and control it. And just watch. Just watch. It's watching. It's seeing things clearly. And so by going into the details of it, getting deeper and deeper into the details, is what clarifies things, is what puts the things into a proper perspective, and so on. So if you've got the tools, you've got everything required to, but you just need patience to allow it to sort itself out. The mess will become clearer as it goes on. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. It's all appropriate. See, so this girl and the situation isn't the cause of what you're feeling. It just triggers what's already in you. And that's going to go back to some other thing that was absolutely an innocent life experience or series of whatever. Yeah.
It feels very personal, though. It does
Of
feel
course,
like,
of course. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's in a way that's part of the what will happen. That's part of the sorting out. Because it does. Of course, it feels personal, but when you start to see some of the details of how it formed, of course, it becomes impersonal. Then you'll see that the other people involved were just playing out their own conditioning, and nobody had any control over what went on. They didn't know any alternatives, whatever. If it was your parents, it was just the way they were conditioned. If it was whatever the circumstances, it was just the way they were conditioned as well. And then it becomes impersonal again, but it's personal until that's seen. Of course it is, because it's you that it's happening to. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also it's personal, and it feels very real that she is responding like that to me specifically because of the way I am. It's like tied to a little bit of shame, and that feels very real. Like something is wrong with me particularly, specifically. Yeah.
Yep. And that's an overlay on the whole situation. And as an overlay, it's perfectly legitimate. But underneath that, there is all of the things that have led up to this, both in you and in her. And none of that is personal. It is just the circumstances that have presented themselves. And so at that description of what is going on now, of course it seems that way. It's personal for you and it's personal for her. And it is. We're not trying to negate that. We don't want to dissociate from that. We don't want to discredit that. It is the way it is, But there is another underlying reality to it all that changes when it's seen, changes the way you experience this. So the same shit happens, but you experience it differently. And part of that might be described as it not being so personal. It is just the way it is. She can't help reacting the way she reacts because that's her conditioning, etc. It's the same with everybody involved, including you. Yeah. So I guess the overall thing is say, patience. Just have patience. It'll it's constantly changing. It can't not. So yeah, where it ends up, who knows? And if shame turns up, it's shame, and that's again a conditioned response you've got. based on beliefs you've got about yourself. And they're just stories. But you've got to see that for it to change.
Hmm.
You know, it's that Buddhist emptiness again. There is no inherent characteristic of shame in you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So all I can suggest is keep talking about it. Keep coming here and talking about it. If you've got nobody else you can talk about it on this level, keep doing that, and it'll change anyway. But this will help it change faster, maybe. You know,
Hmm.
investigating.
Do you have meetings on Tuesdays as well?
So on Tuesday, yeah. Well, it's my Wednesday afternoon, so it'll be your Tuesday probably. Yeah, yeah. Whereabouts are
Right.
you? Where in the world are you?
Canada. Canada.
Sorry, Canada. Right?
Canada.
Yep. So it'll be your Tuesday. Yeah.
I see.
All right. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go and cook my wife breakfast now. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.